Four-centered arch. In this lecture, we are going to study about the four-centered arch. So, I, Anu Mathur, lecturer, Government Women's Polytechnic, will explain you about the different types of four-centered arches. Four-centered arch. As the name suggests, such arches have four centers, meaning by it consists of four segments of circles smoothly glued together or brought together. These centers usually either lie on the springing line or on and below the springing line. The variations are Tudor, Venetian and two cusps. Further moving, we can say that a four-centered arch is a low, wide and with pointed apex. That means it is usually a low kind of an arch with a wider span, covering a wider span, but with a pointed apex. This all we'll see further as we come across and learn about its variations also. The first variation of the first type of four-centered arch you can say is the Tudor arch. So a Tudor arch is a pointed arch with a great span. As we just went through the basic characteristics of four-centered arch, we came across that it spans greater openings. So it has a greater span than rise. That means the span is larger than the rise. Okay. Here you can see in the image as well. And so it is wide and short. This arch is a product of English Gothic style of medieval architecture, became popular under Tudor dynasty, and later in India it was more popular during the Islamic architecture. So structurally or studying it, how it is being made, here we can see it in the image. It comprises of four centers. You can see C1, C2, C3, C4. C1 and C2 are on the springing line, forming the very first part of the first two segments of the arch, and the other two centers which are lying below the springing line, C3 and C4, forms the rest two segments of the complete arch. So in this manner, four segments all together come and form a arch which is known as the Tudor arch, or normally a four-centered arch. But here we can see the span is more and the rise is less. So such arches were used where the openings were larger, for such archways where the openings were larger but the height above was bit low. So not a very high pointed arch as we studied earlier in the three-centered arches and the two-centered arches. So a Tudor arch is, again I repeat, it is wide and short in construction. And here is the best example you can just relate with is the Buland Darwaza at Fatehpur Sikri. So here you can see the very live example of the Tudor arch. Moving on, the second variation is the Venetian arch. Now this Venetian arch, again, since it's a four-centered arch will be constructed out of four centers. But here the thing is, all these four centers are on the springing line itself. They are not above or below, or some above or some below or on the springing. All the four centers are on the springing line. So the variation which develops in the structure is Venetian arch is a pointed arch. Here we can see they are forming an apex, again the basic characteristic of four-centered arch, but its crown is deeper than the springings. That means here you can see at the springings the arch is less deeper, and as you go higher to the crown part or the point, here the arch becomes more deeper. So this is again another variation. Here you can see such type of an arch is used in a window of Venice. So mainly it started from there, but later it was being employed or later was being used in many places as far as decorative purpose was concerned. So here the crown is much deeper than the springing. The Venetian arch is the second variation of the four-centered arch. Now moving on further, two-cusped arch. This is something different since it again comprises of four centers, so it is being categorized or it falls under a four-centered arch as per the construction part is considered. But this arch is not sufficiently structurally efficient. That means it doesn't has the capacity to sustain the loads or bear the weight of the load of the structure above. So it is more of decorative in nature. But here you can see what is cusped. These are the circular shapes which are being formed. So here you can see C1 and C2, the first two centers are forming the first half or the first two cusps of the arch, and C3 and C4, as you see, are forming the another two cusps of the arch. So in all we have four segments, first cusp and the second cusp. So normally because of the structure or of the composition or because of the construction, such arches are known as two-cusped arches. So let's have a quick learning of this or reading of this. Cusped arches are arches with circular shape called cusps cut into its interior. So in the interior we have such kind of cuts. That is, interior curve means extra doors, we repeat and we recall, and this was mainly used for decorative purpose. So this is the decorative variant of four-centered arch, and the first two were the structural variants. So in all we have studied three types of four-centered arches. First was the Tudor, second was the Venetian, and third the decorative variant, that is the two-cusped arch. So here we sum up our study on the four-centered arches.